The Ethereum community is moving towards the merge, making it important for all validators to consider running both execution client and consensus client node. Which is the best client combination suiting your needs is a question that we would like to help you in this Know Your Client series. Welcome to PEEPanEIP episode 75. I'm your host Pooja Ranjan, and with me today is Zahary, an Ethereum developer working on client Nimbus. Thanks for joining us, Zahary.
Thanks for having me here.
A brief introduction about the client. As per the official website, Nimbus is an Ethereum client implementation that strives to be as lightweight as possible in terms of resource used. We'll get to learn more about Nimbus in this episode with Zahary, but first, may we have a brief introduction of the guest and his way to the Ethereum community?
All right, so I've been involved with Ethereum for the past 4 years. I had to start from almost zero knowledge when I joined the Nimbus team. But I've been on quite a ride to learn quite deeply about everything about Ethereum. Before joining the Nimbus team, I was one of the contributors of the NIM programming language. And actually, that's how I ended up on the team. When Jared Hope, the founder of Status, announced that Status will be building an Ethereum client in NIM, that was probably one of the first high-profile project in the NIM programming language. So for me, it was quite exciting to join the team. I was actually the first hire and helped the company recruit some of the best, most active developers from the NIM community. And I'm really proud of the team that we have gathered to work on the project.
Awesome. This is really nice to know that you were one of the first hire for the team. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. It is always nice to know people who have been working so hard to keep running Ethereum. Well, I suppose we have got a lot to cover on this call. So without further ado, let's peep in.
So I have prepared a little bit of introductory presentation for Nimbus, which includes quite a lot of slides that we usually present to companies interested in trying out Nimbus, and I'll try to go to the most important slides here. So welcome to this brief Nimbus introduction. I have a short presentation here that I'll focus only on the most important slides in the interest of keeping this podcast open for questions later. So let me start by introducing Nimbus. I think, first of all, we need to understand how Nimbus fits into the wider mission of Status. If I have to describe this mission shortly, it's Status is aiming to put Ethereum on your phone, in your pocket. Part of this is developing the Status application, which is a chat app, but combining wallet functionality and that browser. So it's an app that allows you to transact with Ethereum with your friends, buy or obtain Ethereum through our Tether network and other interesting features. But also another mission of Status is to enable local merchants to accept Ethereum payments through our keycard project and initiative. Nimbus fits into this mission by aiming to make sure that this vision that Ethereum will be accessible in environments like this, on devices like this, we aim to guarantee that this will become a reality. We develop the Nimbus client with a focus on efficiency, trying to minimize the resources that it consumes, and making sure that this vision for very light clients would be possible in the future. Right now, Nimbus is a fully featured beacon node and validator client, but I envision a future where millions of devices will be using our software components to process and accept Ethereum payments in mobile environments. This could be your local merchant, as I mentioned. You could be buying a ticket when you hop on a bus, for example, or any kind of situation where you want to access Ethereum on the fly. So what makes Nimbus unique? Besides this focus on efficiency, we right now are the only team which is building both an execution node and a consensus node at the same time. We plan to deliver a very streamlined software package in the future, which makes the installation experience extremely easy for people after the merge. And it's also notable that we are building, making a pilot implementation of a very exciting new project in the Ethereum ecosystem called the Portal Client, which aims to distribute the state of the entire state of the Ethereum 1 into a peer-to-peer network, such that every node in this network is responsible for storing only a very small portion of the state. Basically, this is another way to get a network of much more lighter nodes that doesn't suffer from the problem of clients requiring the availability of a lot of server nodes. Basically, the Portal network consists of homogeneous nodes which act both as client and servers at the same time. All right, something that we are quite excited is just how far we were able to push this efficiency. For example, there are many users right now in the Rocket Pool community which run Nimbus and an execution client like Get on a single Raspberry Pi device. So on a Raspberry Pi 4 with its 8 gigabytes of memory are totally enough to run this combination of software. You have to attach an external hard drive, an SSD hard drive to make it happen, but the whole setup is still pretty cheap, runs entirely fanless, and consumes very little energy. Basically, in the screenshot here, you're seeing the effort of one of our users who was able to run this in the wild, truly in the wild, on a power bank, and for 10 days, 10 hours straight without recharging. So there have been a number of independent studies which right now demonstrate that the Nimbus client is leading both in terms of having lowest CPU usage, lowest memory usage, pretty competitive storage requirements, and so on. But this doesn't mean that you have to run Nimbus in such a constrained environment. Basically, all the efficiencies also pay off when you run Nimbus on a, say, very high-end server or a beef or your home computer, for example, because the fact that Nimbus is so efficient just means that you can put a lot of additional workloads on the same machine, and the Nimbus client won't suffer in any way as a result. And if we can imagine a situation where the network is under stress, so the Nimbus clients have a lot of headroom to process kind of a new load, additional load, maybe when the network is under attack, you can have a little bit more security that our efficiency will weather you from the storm, so to speak. And I should also point out that the efficiency is also pretty good for when it comes to actually validator performance. There should be a shout out to all client teams here that I think we've done a pretty good job in the first year of Ethereum. In whatever client you install, you can be certain that you'll getting the maximum validator rewards possible, pretty much. Basically, the different clients differ very, very slightly in terms of the rewards you're getting. Here, you are seeing the results of one study performed by the consensus team, the authors of Teku, which demonstrate that Teku has a very slight lead over Nimbus, which is in the second place. But I should point out that the Nimbus results here are from a very large fleet of diverse Nimbus installations. Basically, the team at Status is running many of Nimbus nodes at home. So these are nodes running under different internet connections. Some users are running them on Raspberry Pis, as I mentioned. Others are running them on Nukes or on their personal laptops. But even these diverse kind of environments have created results that are completely on par with the highly controlled environment where the tech nodes were running. The Nimbus project has been audited by 3 separate teams, independent auditors. Something that we are quite proud of is that due to the fact that the NIM language is still quite young and there was not a lot of developed software in NIM that we could reuse, basically we had to develop everything from scratch. The entire list of Nimbus dependencies, the third-party dependency that our project is relying on, is visible on the screen here. This means that we have tight control over the developed software. We have the freedom to optimize each and every component to make sure that together they deliver this efficiency that I talked about earlier. This is a brief list of the Nimbus team, which needs a little bit of updating, to be honest. And I think that's the most important things that your audience needs to know about the Nimbus team, the Nimbus project.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm sure many willing to be validator must be happily surprised that they have a provider to run both EL and CL clients, and that too both lightweight clients. My first question is about pre and post merge Nimbus. So I'm curious to know, what is the status of Nimbus execution client? Is it available for public use now, or is it something that will be available after the merge?
The Nimbus execution client is still in development. It is able to currently pass the entire suite of Hive tests. So you can argue that it is feature complete, although right now it's not optimized enough to be practical for running on mainnet. Basically, the component that we haven't focused on yet is the storage engine. We are still running with a storage engine that we developed at the kind of very first steps in the project 4 years ago, which is correct, but very much not optimal. So running a mainnet node, it can consume several terabytes of data right now. So for all practical purposes, we don't recommend trying out the execution client layer yet. It's a focus of our development right now, and we hope to have perhaps a better release by the time of the merge.
That would be good. So if it would be available post-merge, then it will be only working as execution layer. They don't have to actually process the block in terms of proof of work.
Well, we do support, we try to make the execution client compatible with all the standards that are currently relevant in the Ethereum world. So we support proof of work, we support proof of authority as well. But obviously, some of these technologies will be phased out eventually after the merge.
That is so right. All right, my next question is related to the consensus layer client. Is there anything that is specifically planned to improve Nimbus user experience after the merge?
Yes, we really hope to deliver a very simplified and streamlined installation process. And we will be building an optional integration with the status app. So basically, you'll be able to install Nimbus on a server, on your home computer or home network, and pair your mobile device where the status app is installed. And this will provide a management interface and a kind of monitoring dashboard for your validators, and that you can access on the go whenever you are.
That is nice. I mean, using blockchain with mobile device is something revolutionary. Then that way we will have more node operators, validators available to join the network.
We hope so as well. I mean, we will make it also very easy to start staking from the status desktop app. But we are also committed to continue supporting the current experience of installing Nimbus as a standalone kind of server software.
All right, that is nice to know. About the consensus layer client, the beacon chain client at the moment, after Altair upgrade, are there any expected changes on the consensus layer side post-merge?
Sure. I mean, there are always a number of developments underway for us. We are continuing to make progress on optimizing the storage requirements. Obviously, we want to achieve a mode of operation which has a kind of steady state storage requirements by pruning the data once it becomes unnecessary for the network. After the weeks of, for example, past the weeks of subjectivity horizon. And we are always working on various functionalities and features which are intended for kind of power users, such as taking pools and so on.
That is good to know. Even on the execution side, my understanding is they are trying to drop states. So maybe optimize the space.
Definitely, yes.
All right. Okay. My next set of question is about the merge testnet. For the merge upgrade, currently we are in the testnet phase. We started from readiness, it's about a year that that testnet phase is still continued. We would love to hear your experience with all these public and DevNet that have been planned. Would you maybe like to talk about your experience and Nimbus's performance during the interop session?
Well, I think as client teams, we have probably learned a lot during the development of both Ethereum 1 and the development of Beacon Chain. So we did go through a very gradual process of kind of rising the bar of what we hope to achieve. Basically, when we got together during the interop event in Greece 1 year ago, it was a very interactive sessions where the teams grouped in pairs and they kind of collaborated on getting the two clans to work, any two clans to work together in a kind of very simple simulation environment, which put the clans only to some very basic interactions between the execution node and the beacon node. And then when we were certain that this works fine and all the clans can communicate with each other without problems, we tried more significant challenges, such as organizing a testnet where all the nodes would join and produce blocks and so on. And during the interop, even during the interop event, we had a network able to produce blocks. So over the next weeks, we continued rising the bar by recreating the same conditions in a little bit more long-lived networks, in a fashion where the coordination was happening fully online. So it's a bit more difficult to troubleshoot problems. But I think all in all, the process has been quite smooth. Most of the time, the clients were working well together, and where issues were detected, they were relatively quickly addressed. I should make a huge shout out to Pari from the Ethereum Foundation, who is managing this testnet in a very efficient way. He's making sure that each and every client combination is well represented, and we, the client teams, get a lot of useful data out of the nodes that he's running. And now the culmination of basically, for some time, we were launching these new custom networks that start from scratch without a lot of history, right? So these are much smaller blockchains that mainnet or even any of the testnets, the long-lived testnets. So we gradually continued raising the bar by creating something called a shadow fork, which is, you can think about it as a network which shares all the history of mainnet, but at some point in time diverges in a different direction. So we pretend to execute the merge on a network which shared the history with mainnet, but diverges in this different direction where the merge has already happened. So this put significantly more stress on the execution clients. And it was the final step before actually we started the process of transitioning the real test nets to the merge. And I will say the combination has been with the recent transition of the Ropsten network. And I'm looking forward to doing something similar first with Prater and Goerli, and then of course with mainnet.
Right, I would agree. I mean, Pari has done a great job here of bringing all client teams together and continuously sharing data with the client combination. Those are working fine. Wondering if there is any favorite client combination of yours, or maybe you think like Nimbus can be best paired with any particular execution client?
Well, we don't have favorites. We try to play nice with everyone.
In that case, maybe the most successful combination, if there is any.
Well, I would encourage people to run minority clans. This is important for the network because, for example, imagine that some kind of issue is discovered in a majority clan. There is even the risk that the network might reach a consensus where this issue has affected the outcome of the blockchain. So if we have a majority clan that controls over 50% of the network, this is a significant risk. But if everybody is running a different client, then any client having issues will just experience a temporary outage, which would be easy to resolve, I would say. And the network as a whole will be in a will have much lower risk systemic for this kind of problems. And obviously, it's also good for mitigating the potential for security threats, vulnerabilities discovered in the clients, and so on. So I would recommend for anyone to try to gauge what is the current client distribution and then go for the minority client.
That is right. Client diversity is like one of the hottest topic of discussion these days. So I wonder, like, what are your thoughts? You just shared about like you would recommend going for minority client. The other day we were talking to Bezu. Bezu is also considered to be one of the minority client. However, I think that these are all colors. Those are adding to Ethereum network. So more users we can add to all these individual client provider would be good too. Good for the new joiners as well as the Ethereum ecosystem. What do you think is the best combination for Nimbus now, or maybe when the execution client for Nimbus would be ready?
Well, for people who care about efficiency, the combination of Nimbus plus Nethermind is quite good. And I already mentioned that a lot of our users are running Nimbus plus Get on devices such as Raspberry Pi. So these are both good setups for achieving high efficiency.
That is great. By the way, just for audience, we are also trying to get a talk on individual clients. So you would be expecting someone from Get team and Nethermind team to be talking about these clients soon. I have another question related to the public testnet. Is there any specific incident that you would like to talk about that you may have experienced during this testing phase that may have changed the path of the merge specs, or something that was planned earlier has to be completely scrapped off and altogether bring a new thought to it?
Well, actually, I cannot think of anything like that. I remember minor accidents where, for example, two clients will get locked up in something that we developers call deadlock. But these are always kind of logic bugs into the implementation rather than problems with the spec itself. And sometimes the client teams will spend some time figuring out like where the problem resides. It's always like that, where the two teams interact. But all we know, I think the issues were resolved quite quickly, most in the situation that I remember.
That is awesome. I mean, you guys are awesome in resolving issues and bugs those are identified during any of these situations. Talking about that, recently we had this Ropsten testnet merge, and if I remember correctly, there was a minor issue with the Nimbus client. Is there any update on that? I'm assuming that may have been resolved by now.
We had a little bit of rough start indeed, because the Ropsten network was a little bit of a first time for us. For basically like any other organization, we have a DevOps department, which has prepared some scripts for deploying Ethereum nodes. And basically we had this brand new code that was never tried before and was supposed to run for the first time for the Ropsten launch. And it did have, suffice to say, it had some small issues. So some of our validators were not immediately producing blocks in the beginning. But I would say it took us like 2 or 3 hours to resolve everything and to start producing blocks.
That is great. We have heard that Sepolia spec is out now, so very soon we would be expecting the genesis of Beacon Chain and maybe announcement for the Sepolia testnet merge. What would you say about the readiness for Nimbus for the next testnet merge?
Well, I mean, at this point, the client teams are feature complete, the clients. So these transitions executed in the testnets, they're interesting in the sense that sometimes they reveal new conditions that the client has never encountered before. So it's very important for us to create a diverse set of basically configurations that go through the merge. Maybe you should try a client which is not synced, for example, during the merge. Maybe you will launch your client slightly later. Maybe your beacon node is synced, but your execution node is not synced. Stuff like that. We are supposed to try all these different scenarios and make sure that they work well. And the testnets offer us the ability to kind of try this few times and gain more confidence that the corner cases have been handled.
That's right. That's exactly the purpose of testnets. And that is one of the reasons why we are having so many testnets, like being tested before we go for the mainnet merge. Well, talking about the future testnet, I understand after Sepolia's testnet merge, there would be Goerli and Prater testnet. So Prater, I'm assuming it's a beacon chain testnet. So you may have, I mean, the team may have been familiar with the Prater. I wonder what is the general experience working with the Prater testnet?
Well, all the client teams have been running the majority of validators on the Prater testnet. It is a long-lived Ethereum network that I'm sure many of your listeners are familiar with. So what would be challenging, I guess, is that it is a network where we are merging both a beacon chain with long history and an Ethereum 1 network with long history. So in terms of size, it's not really approaching mainnet, but it's quite a bit closer to this scale that we are after with the mainnet transition.
That is right. Like for Sepolia and Sepolia beacon chain, they are relatively new, but Goerli and Prater, they have been here for some time and they may have more history.
Exactly.
So yeah, that would be exciting to watch. All right. How would you say the journey towards the merge has been so far for the team?
Well, as I mentioned, I think all of the client teams are really excited to deliver the merge as soon as possible. Basically, for many of us, this is, for example, when I joined the Ethereum development, one of the primary motivations for me was actually addressing the climate change concerns of cryptocurrencies, right? So the proof of stake eliminates this enormous waste produced by the kind of proof of work algorithms. So the sooner we deliver the merge, obviously the better. But at the same time, we need to be cautious. We need to make sure that we are not missing any precaution. But I am quite optimistic. Progress has been great.
Right. I know. I mean, taking it slow is not a bad thing as long as we are trying to avoid any kind of future mishaps. So that's great. And yeah, one more thing. Congratulations for the team to receiving the best merged Panda ASCII art. I love the art that we saw. POS is activated. That was great.
Well, we have this contributor on our team, Ethan Kisling, who really took the kind of Panda art seriously. Like he recruited a very talented ASCII art artist. He paid him out of his own pocket, and the artist spent probably more than 2 weeks on this project. He kind of had a lot of different concepts that we were considering.
That was great. I mean, like Panda has literally become the symbol for the merge. So it was good to see that we can have ASCII representation of Panda as well.
It's pretty cool.
So far, it's all about what community expects from the developers. So my last question to you is about your expectation as a client dev from the community. What is that will make a client dev happy?
Well, obviously, one important question is how do we ensure the sustainability of client development? And obviously, right now, we have different players in the ecosystem who support our work. Basically, our work is important both for Status and the Ethereum Foundation, so they provide great support for us. We're truly grateful, but I think in the long term, we will need a plan for how the client teams will continue to be sustained in the future.
I agree. That's one of the most important concern as of now, and I'm happy to share about the Protocol Guild, which is trying to fulfill this gap of sustainability. I hope that works out. All right, it's almost time to wrap up. You already have shared a lot of information related to the client. I really hope that information shared today in this episode will be useful for new users, new validators, as well as the existing validator may be considering running alternate nodes. If they are not running Nimbus or any other minority client, consider running one of those nodes. Thank you, Zahary. We really appreciate you taking out time and talking to us.
Thanks, everyone.
And on this note, thanks to everyone watching and listening to this special episode on TheMerge. Should you have any question, leave a comment, reach us at eCatHerd's Discord. Check out description for links to useful resources and guest Twitter to follow. We have got more merge special talks coming up, so stay tuned and keep sharing your love with Ethereum Cat Herders. Have a good one, everyone.